Namaskar.
So coming back to the principle of sound frequency, we have these verbal utterances of sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa.
Sa re ga ma pa da ni.
The 7 notes. Sa in Indian music is the mother note, which is called as the Adhara Swar, which is the tonic note, tonic frequency. Now, I told you that something which deals with melody, that sound is musical. Any kind of a sound which is not melodious to the ear is just a kind of noise. But noise also, if interpreted in a different way, it can be made musical. For example, someone banging the door, it's very irritating. Or someone trying to rub against the surface or making a sound like this would sound like noise to us. But if the same thing is made a little rhythmic, it becomes a part of music. If the banging on the door is done in a kind of rhythmic fashion with even intervals, it speaks music. So even the worst kind of noise sometimes becomes a part of music if it is sort of interpreted musically. And that could be understood only by those who are capable of connecting noise with music to make it musical. Otherwise, it's not possible. So when we take these 7 notes of music, let me not shift my focus into some other system at this point of time. So I'm taking our Indian culture and our Indian music as the basis for understanding. And since I specialize in Indian classical music, and to be very, very specific, it's the North Indian system called as Hindustani classical music. In India, we have 2 main systems of classical music. One is called as the Carnatic music, which is the most ancient form. And the other one is referred to as the North Indian classical music or Hindustani classical music. Hindustan itself is India actually, as we all know. I don't know why it has been called as Hindustani music, but that is usually referred to as the North Indian system, and Carnatic music is referred to as the South Indian system. So it is the North and South. Let us not divide these 2 systems into North and South. It's not a good idea to do that. The only difference between the 2 is that the expressions are different. We use the same notes. We use similar notes. The same 7 notes, sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni. But the nuances of what happens in Carnatic music and what happens in Hindustani music, these 2 styles are different. The styles are different. But before we go into understanding anything about classical music or we try to interpret the classical music, because when we say classical, it's a disciplined form. But the most ancient music from where everything originates musically, it's the folk music. Folk music is that part of the music which is available to the common man. When society was divided into several pockets where there was not much of communication, people remained in small pockets in different areas, and they would never mingle also too much because there was no chance during those days because of lack of communication, lack of transport and logistics, and infrastructure was not as it is today. And because of this, every small pocket had its own culture, and they had their own rituals, they had their own tunes and melodies and rhythm, they had their own culture, which was to do certain things. So they could understand only that part. Since communication was not happening with the other part of the society, they remained totally aloof with their own ideas. So this way, the music that came out from those areas, they were all folkish by nature. It's almost like, tribes living in different belts. They have their own cultures. We can see that even today. There are some tribes who live all by themselves. They are not connected with the mainstream. And when you hear their music, it's totally different from what we all hear in cities today. So because of this, we very easily come to know that the traditions of this folk music, which was there in different parts, when it all got collective slowly as the society came together, there was a chance for people to interpret these things with scholarly ideas. And there was a need to do it probably, and that was the reason probably why some kind of a shastra or a discipline came into force. Just like every single region or every single pocket had its own laws and its own kinds of interpretations of how you need to live in that pocket, and if something happens, how that is to be dealt with. So they had their own crude ideas, and law was different in all these belts probably at one point of time. So when the society came together, we all have some kind of a uniform code of conduct today. And that's where we are all governed by the Constitution. Nobody can escape from that. So that way probably some kind of a scholarly interpretation might have happened, because of which Shastra, which is a kind of a grammar, which is a kind of an orthodox tradition to understand certain ideas, this must have given rise to classical music, what we refer to as Shastriya Sangeet. Lok Sangeet, which is the folk music, Shastriya Sangeet, which is the classical music, and in India, we have the North Indian system and the South Indian system prevalent, and both of them going together. But let me remind you all, the most ancient form, nobody can deny this, is the South Indian system, which we call as Carnatic music. I may be a practitioner of Hindustani music, North Indian system of music, but I don't shy away from the idea of accepting the supreme orthodox traditional formation of Carnatic music. It's the most ancient system. North Indian system, which we call as Hindustani music, is a system which got into India, which you started somewhere around the 5th century, where the Persian influence happened in this belt. Earlier to that, what was the music? I don't want to go into that. I feel that probably the South Indian music was in circulation, and this is the most traditional system. Luckily, in music, anything that gets adulterated is rejected. So, something which got in as an influence of the Persian culture or the Islamic culture, whatever you may call, that flowered in a very nice way in this belt, and that gave rise to Hindustani classical music. Let us not go into too many styles of music at this stage. We'll just go part by part, and what little I can explain, I'll try to explain. So, the basic understanding has to be that classical forms, there are two which exist. One is the North Indian, the other one is the South Indian system, and both the systems are based on what is called as the concept of raga. We all know what melody means. Melody, you know, all of us associate with a kind of a tune or a song. For example,